President Donald Trump made his first appearance since the assassination attempt at the RNC in Milwaukee yesterday. Let's watch.
And I had to start again, just my children and my wife. Thank my lucky stars, and I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. Sing it! God bless the USA!
So obviously, you can prominently see the bandage on his ear in that video. Now, the announcement of Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, has enthralled many. The conservative base is fired up. Former GOP hopeful Vivek Ramaswamy had this to say about it. So proud of my friend, classmate, and fellow Southwest Ohioan today. We used to watch Bengals games at the bar in law school. It's awesome we're now here a decade later with JD joining the strongest presidential ticket in our lifetime. He'll be an outstanding vice president, and I look forward to everything ahead for him and for our country.
There are also reports of protests near the convention center. The numbers are in the hundreds, and they've been calling for reproductive rights and rights for the LGBTQ+ community and other issues important to the left. Now we turn to Reason's Emma Camp, who is in Milwaukee to give us the latest. Why don't you tell us what the energy and the vibe was like when Trump came out there with the bandage on his ear?
So far, yesterday, the vibe has been very positive. The energy has been very high. I spoke to quite a number of delegates and guests yesterday, and almost universally, they have been in a very positive mood and extremely confident. And I think the selection of J.D. Vance as Trump's vice president really reflects that. It's sort of a doubling down on much of Trump's rhetoric, his populist stance, for example. So I think so far the Republicans are very confident.
So, give us a sense of, is this energy, what are you hearing from people when you talk to them? Is there confidence that Donald Trump is going to be reelected? Is there blaming, by the way, of Democrats and Biden and their rhetoric for what happened to Trump over the weekend? Obviously, that's been something that J.D. Vance and others have suggested on social media. And are they expecting or wanting Trump, when he does speak, to pivot to kind of national unity? Some reporting has suggested that he's rewritten his speech or refocused, or have the speeches so far feel like they're different speeches than they were going to be last week before the assassination attempt.
So the individuals I've spoken to have been almost universally extremely positive and sort of superfluous in their praise of Trump. But this is not new. This has been going on since Trump first came onto the political stage. I think there is a little bit of a desire for vengeance, if that's perhaps too strong of a word, from the delegates I've spoken to. I think there is a sense that Democratic rhetoric led to this. From my perspective, I'm not so sure if that's just kind of a attempt to score political points. Obviously, if you're in this position, it's a very good idea from a political perspective to try to blame it on the other party as much as possible. And there haven't been too many speeches yet. I think a lot of them have been very triumphant, but I do have a little bit of hope that there is going to be an attempt to unify the country a little bit more, especially coming from former President Trump when he gives his final speech later. And another way of thinking about why there might be an increase in language around unity is that right now the Republicans are forecasted to do so well in the election in November that I think they sort of can get away with making some overtures to unity without having to be quite so partisan, because I think there's a sense that they don't fully need to behave that way.
Now, Emma, there was a really unlikely guest at the Republican National Convention. A union leader, Sean O'Brien, with the Teamsters, was there. Can you tell us what the reception was like? Were people surprised that a labor leader was present at the RNC?
I don't think so. I think since Trump has sort of come on the scene and really taken over the Republican Party, the economic positions of the right and the left have converged. I found this a lot when I was speaking to people yesterday. They brought up how much they love Trump's tariffs, for example, his high entitlement spending. And they really were praising an economic agenda that you wouldn't be surprised to see from President Biden in many ways. I think I saw a lot of online reaction to this, where there's some surprises, like you could have expected to see this at a Democratic national convention. And I still think you could. I just think that the Republicans and the Democrats are getting increasingly similar in their economic positions.
And it was not just the kind of a high-profile labor presence that had some people going, huh, at the RNC. Also, there was Amber Rose, who has a face tattoo and who I think previously praised Satanists for encouraging more people to have abortions, but is now a dyed-in-the-wool Trump supporter. I saw someone tweet, I can't remember who it is, so apologies for just ripping this off from some random person, that if you'd seen a labor leader and Amber Rose, you'd heard they were speaking at a political convention in 2008, you would have assumed this would have been the Democrats, but now it's the Republicans.
Yeah, that I believe is the tweet I was thinking of when I was talking earlier about the economic agendas of the Democrats and the Republicans. I guess when it comes to Amber Rose, everybody needs their celebrity endorsements. I find her a little bizarre, but I think that there are a lot of speaking slots over the course of the RNC, and somebody has to fill them.
Now, I'm curious because the 48 sponsors of the PRO Act that would protect labor rights in the United States are all Democrats. In the Senate, Donald Trump has cut taxes permanently for corporations on corporate profits, while Biden has proposed raising them as a means to pay for big progressive policies. It seems to me that the economic policies of the two parties couldn't be more different. I'm curious if you're hearing something different from Republican figures in Milwaukee there, Emma.
So I think you're right to bring up taxes, but Trump, for example, has proposed a 10% tariff on all imports, which is extremely protectionist, and I think it fits with a lot of the priorities that Democrats have. Obviously they're not exactly the same quite yet, but I do think there is this increasing backing away from the sort of economic conservatism, the fiscal conservatism that has marched the Republican Party before 2016.
Well, yeah, I think the main difference is that Republicans are in an interesting position because they're doing better in terms of voting. Their supporters have become the average income of their supporter goes down. They're doing better with culturally kind of conservative working class people than they have in other cycles. And culturally conservative working class people don't want, tax cuts for the wealthy and are more supportive of the entitlement state and are supportive of tariffs, like you said. Now, are Republican elites down with all those policies? Some are, many still aren't. Many of the same people are around still from the, nobody in Congress ever actually retires or dies. They're, still some of the same people from the 90s who would have preferred more of the Reagan and Bush style economics. But the base is turning because of the, beginning with their culturally conservative views fitting in with the Republican Party, or just being culturally that's the party for them now. But then their ideas are economically different. So it's kind of like I think they're tugging at the party to move in that direction. How much movement is actually taking place is not clear. Now, I think Vance does signal a lot of movement in that direction, although we've had a couple disagreements about that today, Jessica. What do you say, Emma?
Yeah, no, I would agree very strongly with that. Many of the delegates I spoke to did not give me the impression that they were party elites necessarily, right? These are people from rural Texas who are just coming to support their state party. And they definitely voiced that that economic shift. For example, I heard a lot of support for protecting Social Security and Medicare, for example. I generally agree with that. And I think that J.D. Vance, who has voiced very strong support for entitlements, he wants a child tax credit, for example, he wants to continue to back Social Security and Medicare for a very long time, really does signal that economic shift.
We had a really shocking leak come out of RFK Jr.'s camp this morning, a private phone call of him and Donald Trump. Have you heard this audio playing from any cell phones there in Milwaukee? Has anyone talked at the convention about this leaked phone conversation from what you've heard?
Not from what I've heard. I haven't heard RFK Jr. mentioned all that often. I think the only time someone said his name is, I was working on a video where I asked people to try to convince me, a Trump skeptic, to vote for Trump, and somebody suggested that I should vote for RFK instead if I didn't like either Biden or Trump. But that's really been it. But the day is young, so I'm interested to see if people are familiar with that going forward.
Emma Camp, thank you so much for giving us some reporting on the ground. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Emma.
Bye, Emma. Thank you.